Good evening. My name is Eric Lindstrom, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland Wetland Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, and it is 6:30 p.m. Will everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll take a roll call of the members of the commission and staff present during tonight's hybrid meeting. Please answer here or present, starting with myself, Eric Lindstrom, chairman, here. Ryan Kelly, vice chairman. Here. Rick Smith. Here. Jim Stewart, professional engineer. Benjamin Sabia, secretary. Here. Paul Fernandez. Here. Mark Zamery. Here. Kathleen Gallagher, planning and zoning administrator.
Here.
And Andrew Brotman, inland wetland enforcement officer.
Here.
Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetland Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. Please note that this meeting is being conducted utilizing electronic equipment in compliance with State Law Public Act 21-1. As such, this meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public in compliance with state law. If you are attending remotely, you will automatically be muted and unable to unmute yourself. If you wish to speak during the public participation portion of the meeting, please use the raise hand function. If you are participating via telephone, press *9 to activate the raise hand feature. Staff will announce your name and unmute you when it is your turn to speak. The video feature has also been disabled for public participation. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. All votes taken during which any member of the body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. The chat features will not be utilized nor considered during this meeting. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. I ask that applicants keep their presentations as concise as possible. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Please keep comments or questions direct, where a time limit of 3 minutes may be imposed. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep all comments pro and con specific to inland wetland related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, can we add a couple of things to the agenda? I have two agent approvals, IAA 25-13 and IAA 25-16. And then we have a correspondence to add to the agenda, a letter from 68 East Village Road. Motion to...
Motion for
You would have to motion.
Motion to add the two agent approvals as well as the communication from 68 East Village Road to the agenda.
We have a motion to amend the agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? All right, at this time, we ask for general public participation. Anybody in the chambers who wants to come up and speak in general nature regarding anything not on our agenda tonight, please come on up. Okay, anyone online, go ahead and raise your hand if you're want to speak.
There's nobody online.
Nobody online? Okay. Moving on. Regulated activity. Doesn't look like we have any applications tonight. So moving on to our regular meetings, we have IWC 2025-05, file number 1534, 169 Enterprise Drive. Construction of a parking area and septic system with associated grading for commercial building. 169 Enterprise Associates LLC is the applicant. Alan Shepard, NOK and Associates, representative.
Hello, everyone. For the record, I'm Alan Shepard, professional engineer, partner in the firm Monroe Costume. And John McCain, 415 Howell Avenue, South Connecticut. So what we have in front of you is a proposal for a building that we had a couple of years ago. We did get approved at that time. We made, and then go forward with the building. We have a lot of stuff going on in the world, you know. So we're back at it. And they changed the shape of the building, so they're a little bit different shapes. One thing that we did change in the regulated area is we bumped the storage and it's a location for the drainage for everything. And to do that, we're going to have a little bit more fill in the septic system that has, there's no code against fill on top of the septic system, but hit the 6 to 8 feet and 7 feet, you know, it's a little bit enough. So we tested over in the Newtown property for the septic reserve area, kept the primary the same way, the same number of plays at each the same. But I tested the area in Newtown so that we could possibly put a reserve up there. It doesn't mean we couldn't use the area that we had before, but now I know I got a new area that's really safe, you know? So that was a change on the plan. But other than that, it's pretty close to what we had approved before.
Can you walk us through on the drive, what's different from the previous one? Because we don't seem to.
If you see that the vent storages, that's where they store the stone to dip the vent. There's the concrete bends on that towards the wetlands. You guys got that? That's 20 feet closer to the wetlands. It's still not in the wetlands. We're still not filling the wetlands. We haven't changed the approved regulated area line or the approved limited disturbance line. I just moved that over. So that's because the client expressed to me that they want a little bit more room for their operation. Right now, he walked me down to where he's got in Bridgeport. And they got tow motors and trucks going around. And he'd just like to have the separation distance, a little bit more room for the operation for safety reasons. It just, it doesn't work where he has right now in Bridgeport, but you guys got backing up, loading, picking up stone, bringing it to buildings. A little bit more room, he thought it was a little, and it doesn't change the limited disturbance. So what we had approved before, we're not changing. So did you guys see that?
Look for what you have before.
Normally you guys had the screen up here with the words.
Yeah, I think we.
Do you have something you want to share to the screen?
It's just like mine, I think that's,
Do you have it on a flash drive?
I think we sent it, but if not, I have this here. I don't know.
You know,
It's these bends right here, push this back 20 feet. So they were like in the front of the bends here. So we just pushed them back. The building's in the same spot.
the leaching field?
And the leaching field's in the same spot. I just put a reserve over here. So we're not building the reserve. The reserve used to be underneath those bends. So I just threw them over in the Newtown side. They're in the woods out there.
I asked, sir, what are you storing in these storage areas?
Rocks.
Just rocks.
Just rocks. So they have, the clients, test it. You would think rocks are just rocks, but they have different shades, different colors. They really get into it with the different types of rocks. So when they have clients come in to pick out stuff or whatever, they should. Rocks will split differently, have different colors. So they're like that out there, so they see.
No soil, no compost, no mulch or anything like that.
That's it.
So your reserve is going to be on the Newtown side of the line?
On the Newtown side, so we have the health department out there, there's a letter in the file.
Right, I was just gonna say, so I assume they've seen all this.
So we got that in the file, and if you want to go over the findings here, I have a letter from Wetlands, it's in your file in your package, you didn't see that. It's approved from the Newtown Wetlands, still in that letter. That's still valid.
That letter's from 2020, that's still a valid permit?
Yeah. So I went up to see him with the new plans and the bottom, and said, no, just show him that.
We have James on?
We don't have James on. That was his one concern, was that it gets approved through Newtown Wetlands Department,
Right.
which could be,
And he said you can do a condition of approval, but we already got it approved. And then he had some smaller technical things, like the bond. And I must have forgot to give the old bond. I have a copy of the old bond that was approved. If they want to factor it up a little bit, or whatever.
James will want to look at the bond, and
What's that?
James will want to look at the bond.
Yeah, he'll look at it, and if they want to,
Seaweed conservation. So that's an area of standards.
And my understanding is James's concern with having a valid wetland permit had more to do with stormwater, which if the stormwater is running onto the Newtown side, and again, instead of having two engineers reviewing it, he had no issue with it being in the town of Newtown's courts. So as long as they felt like the stormwater was being captured and treated in accordance with the state regulations, he didn't have an issue with it. So I think that would probably be, I know he talked to Newtown's engineer today, so that would just be the only clarification from him, just to make sure that the handling of that stormwater was included in that 2020 permit.
Have they seen the most recent set of plans? Do we know?
James saw it, yes.
James, I know, but the Newtown.
Yeah, Steve McGuire and the Wetland officer, I brought him set plans. And emailed him.
He had no comments.
He gave me that letter back and said, you're still good.
Just to confirm, the Newtown line is this double dash with a line that goes across the north section here?
Yes,
Okay.
That, okay.
Just the upper corner, yeah. So
Where is the water's running up against those bins? The surface water on the parking lot? Right? To the curb?
we have it pitched, so we have the catch basin drainage in the parking lot area, there's, operations area. We have catch basins in there, it takes it down to tie into the storm drain system.
So it's pitched away from the wetlands in the parking lot?
Yeah, it'll pitch towards the catch basin.
I don't see the proposed contours, I guess.
So are you doing anything in the catch basins to, keep any little dust or, because I know
Yeah,
the storms are gonna come in, they will, okay.
And the drainage system that's out there has a pre-treat sediment area to it that was installed before. We're not changing it.
Again, a clarification. It looks like you're about 50 feet to the closest wetland line. Is that about right?
We're probably a little closer. Well, the Russian stone wall that's out there, but that's what we had approved before. So,
No. I'm talking about, you moved.
what are you talking?
So you moved in, you moved the storage bins in, and I'm wondering, this here looks to me about 50 feet. That's a close.
Yeah. The bends are about 50. have some grading there.
The town lines from your mapping looks like that's not a property line. That parcel is one thing. This does not affect this approval, but the only thing I would say is our records for the mapping for the last subdivision map that we show in our records from 2005 shows a meets and bounds over that as if in a description and a size as if those are two separate parcels. So in order for you to not have to comply with setback requirements for the septic system, before you come to planning and zoning, just make sure that you're giving us all that information to prove that it's one lot.
Do you see anything that you raise an eyebrow at?
The only thing is, I mean, there's no proposed grading, so, you know, I mean, I can't tell where the water's going other than what
Oh,
the engineer
if
has.
you look at the site plan, we have tops of frames.
It's on the page?
There's this whole,
Ah,
this whole section.
Yeah.
there's another page. Okay.
That, everything inward to control the water. If you don't maintain it, they'll be driving through the water, so
Is that it?
Are there approximately, approximately 18 storage bins, or are the other ones northwest, are those overflow storage bins, or how many storage bins are there?
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The other things are parking lots. Parking.
Parking, okay. So for the storage bins, originally, I don't recall, so originally, were they outside of the upland review area? Or like how far basically did you push them back?
20 feet.
20 feet, you said, that's right, okay.
The straight line 20 feet, or do you like rotate it?
They were, they are just moving back.
Do we have a drawing of what was approved?
Oh, the previous approval?
I was looking for it. Okay.
No.
That's something we can, either the applicant, if they have a copy of it, and we can check it, or we can also see what we have in the files and make copies as well. We can
Were
make-
those parking spots moved back as well, or are those in the original location?
Original location.
Unless the commission would like some sort of overlay, if they feel like that would make more sense, you could request that from the applicant.
What if it's got the size of the. I imagine without the.
What are the size of the bins themselves right now? Each bin itself, what's the size of each
I
bin?
think there were like 15 by 15. That's
15 by 20.
50 by.
So they move back the width of
Just
the,
one size, right?
right, one side. I'm just trying to visualize what moved where it could have been.
So I had held the corner by the septic system, moved the other side back to 20. Sidewalk.
So, okay, so the top corner, you kind of pivoted off of that. Gotcha.
It seems to me that 50-foot that I was asking about, it's about, it didn't change, that 50-foot part. It's that the bottom of it,
Yeah,
you get to the upper view area. Yeah, which is north? North is the Newtown line?
I knew you were gonna ask that. Yeah, so, like, yeah, north is, so the top of the page would be north. So the north side I held, the southern side I held.
yeah, this, the page. That shows you around. It's in there somewhere.
And here's the topics here.
It does look like your grading, is now a little closer to that stone wall than it had been in the past. Is that an accurate statement?
Maybe a little bit negligible, but it helped the limited disturbance time.
Let's start at the end there. Do you have any specific questions?
I do not.
Commissioner Smith?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Alan?
Can you, I think it was said before, but what is the nearest, the furthest from the wetlands in that regulated area? What is the closest that it is to the wetlands? What's like the northern, the top end of those? Or what is the distance there?
The closest to the limited disturbance line, you know, we have, at the northerly end of the bend, we have, you know, there's about, limited disturbance line to the wetlands. And that was proved a couple times there because of the stone wall. They had, historically a bigger building here for the site with more grading. So when we scaled back the size of the building, we got some grading there for my yard space. So we didn't go any closer than the disturbance line. Right by the school. And it was cleared already.
Yeah. I think I'm good.
Okay. Fine. You're fine?
Yeah, I am too.
I had a couple of comments that some of which were answered. I had made mention that the landscape mitigation plan was light in the plant material. The applicants have, with this new submission, have beefed up that planting. I did ask about a retaining wall at the bottom part of those bins, and if we could, have they considered putting a retaining wall in to reduce the slope coming off of that bin to slow down the velocity of the water? And Mr. Shepherd could answer to that. And then asked if they could explain the history of the property. There was a violation back in 2020. If they could just sort of answer what that violation was all about and what the remediation was.
I'll take the retaining wall first. I'd rather do it with the grading than have a retaining wall with fill and stuff next to the wetland. And I have the water pitched towards the center of the property. So I have the water pitched towards the center of the grades. So we like grading. It's a gentle grade that I got there. I could have gone to a 2-to-1, but it's a gentle grade. We'll plant it. I think that would be better than a wall, considering that property was already cleared. Like they already had approval, somebody had approvals to go forward, cleared the property, and that's what the violation was for. And I think that was resolved. That was my time. But definitely the last time we went through, we feel located the area of disturbance, and it was up to where they clear cut the lot, was what they were permitted to clear cut to. So we're not changing that line. So they took down all the trees and stuff. We didn't do it. So, you know, but it's already cleared up to that line. So.
Question. So as I'm looking at the drawing, the rear of the storage is at 448 and the middle of the storage or towards the front is 452. So it looks like you're picking up 5 feet in 20 feet. It's quite a pitch, and it's pitched towards the wetlands. You follow what I'm saying? There's a 448.
No, you got to go by the spot elevation.
Got to be what?
Corner spot elevations on the plan. So if you take a look at the boxes, the elevations in the boxes. So those are the spot elevations. Then I got it pitched. So we'll do it, we'll pitch it this summer, we know we want it. We don't want our stone dust going.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're filling it in with what?
Clean fill, it'll be clean fill. It'll be- Some of it may be rock because he has rock, but it'll be clean fill.
There's a curb back there, right? There is, that parking lot has a curb to it.
Yeah. So we're well aware we can't have that stuff going on. And if you guys want to make a condition.
The bins are made of,
They're gabion blocks, the concrete blocks.
so they're mafia blocks gonna be? How do you, I know that when you push up against those, sometimes they start to
Migrate.
migrate and push, and then you gotta reset them and all
These
that.
guys do it all the time, and they do pretty well with it down in the Bridgeport facility, so that is a danger with those. But we could get the ones that interlock too, so they do sell those now.
You can get a better pin together. Yeah, I think that would make more sense to avoid getting them pushed over.
I figured out what was throwing me off on the north arrow. It's different on both drawings. I think we know which one is correct, so I don't have any questions, but just to let you know,
What did you?
the north arrow is pointing differently.
Yeah.
It is a little tricky out there.
It's all right, tricky. It's all right.
Stand in the woods.
Other than that, it's a very nice drawing.
Well, but we did note that you didn't have, it doesn't explain the lines, the dashed lines, there's no,
But now we get it, so we looked at the correct north arrow, so. All right.
It was mentioned that James needed to look at the bond information. Is that something that,
That could be a condition of approval. Oh, sure.
No, the bond amount has to be voted on at this time. We can't just have an arbitrary that James has the,
So what was his concern? Just the actual amount?
just that he hadn't seen it?
I don't
He
think
hasn't seen
he
it.
hasn't seen it, so he hasn't set, he has to review it and then he agrees,
Yeah.
We
modifies.
really can't,
To the
we can't close this until he sets that bottom amount.
I would not because you could probably close it, but I wouldn't vote on it tonight. Even after you close it, he is allowed to provide you information. We just can't accept more information from the applicant or any information that would cause discussion.
If we close it, that's what I'm saying. Maybe we're better off not closing.
I would just keep it open, but I would think that at the moment, we could talk about the potential conditions of approval, which would be anything that James is going to review with their engineer again, if the stormwater was included as part of the 2020 inland wetland approval from the town of Newtown. So that may be, again, some language about the condition of making sure, depending on what he has to say. Sounds like that the bins would be interlocking, somehow, some way. And then whatever the bond amount would also be a condition of the approval.
Well, if we're gonna give him a couple weeks to wait for James Mayer to come in, do we want
We
to?
have another meeting in 2 weeks, so I think.
So rather than making it a condition of approval, we'll give him an opportunity to maybe update the plans to reflect, or
I think it's minor enough stuff. Instead of making them update a full set of plan and print 10 copies, I think staff would be okay with them being conditions of approval. Do you agree?
Yeah, yes.
all right. All right, so what are the few things we have on that list? Obviously, the
Interlocking concrete blocks for the bins. See the wetland approval from the town of Newtown and make sure that that is still valid, which I've already seen. And for the bond amount to be reviewed by James.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. You guys all okay with that?
And we're good with the grading, I think, right? Like, I think I feel okay with the grading as opposed to a wall. Is everybody aligned with that, or?
I'm satisfied with the answer.
Okay.
So the other thing that I think I heard as we were going along was that it would be valuable to see the previous approval.
We can provide that to you.
Do you want to see the previous with the new overlaid?
I'm
That's
looking at
more-
them. We have a digital copy of it. It's pretty clear. It's really the bins push out a little bit, which pushes the grading out a little bit. It looks like everything else is the same. And then the size of the building changes the back outside of the upland review area. I think you guys will be, you
I
guys.
don't think we need any additional drawing. We just need existing drawings to show us, and we can compare the two.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Do you want those full-size drawings?
Or 18 by 24s.
18 by 20.
That's probably fine, just so we can,
And can the applicant bring those?
Can you provide the?
yeah, that's fine. It doesn't need to be the full set, just one of the pages. Just
That was a grading plan.
Yeah, that's fine.
10 copies, 18 by 24, and I'll get them distributed in packets
Yeah.
before the next meeting.
I think that suffice.
Motion to continue? Do we have to do that?
We just have to state it on the record. This is going to be continued to the March 11th. Is that the next one?
March 11, yes.
Backwards.
He's only wait that long.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to go through those under it.
I'll do it. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay, moving on to IWC 2021-09A2. File number 1382, 1271 Monroe Turnpike. Proposed modification of location of units 20, 21, 22, and 25 to be 5 feet closer to Wetland Bridge Builders LLC applicant. J. Edwards and Associates LLC representative.
Jason Edwards, and Associates Engineers and Surveyors, office is located at 227 Stepney Road, Easton. Here to cover this, for the hearing determination, and kind of went through the scope. This is a modification of the approved site plan for the ridge at Monroe, which was approved originally, I think, in 2020. Which subsequently did, I think, 2 modifications to that wetland approval. The site's under construction now, they're in phase 2, and the developer would like to shift the buildings 20, 21, 22, 23, and 25. Give them back or to the side a little bit. It's all in the existing area of disturbance that was approved, so it's a cleared area, it's a disturbed area. The house is just that the potential the buyers want to place here are a little bit different shape than what the developer had initially anticipated, so they're asking to push it back. The house itself, I think, is about 5 feet. And then we're also showing patios and decks on there that were not on the initial approval. So again, it's all within the approved limit of disturbance. There's no increase in that. The stormwater system is sized adequately to handle any changes in impervious surfaces. The town engineer reviewed and had no comments. So we're just here to answer questions and hopefully get to approve.
So they're all shifting north on the property, or?
It's this, well, if you look on the screen here, you've got the purple. The black is what was initially approved, and then the purple is what they're proposing, so.
Shifting,
Some of them are shifting to the east, and then the only one that's kind of a different direction is 25. So it's shifting.
19's shifting? It's not,
I think it's 20,
20 just rotated.
19 rotated.
Yeah.
23 and 20.
Now these, you haven't poured the foundations?
For the developer, AJ Gross this year.
AJ Grasso from Bridge Builders, 14 Redtail Court, Shelton. The foundations for 19 and 20 have been poured.
Okay.
What brought this about was as we're getting buyers, the buyer for number 21 wanted to have a deck and a patio. And the deck was going to stick out 2 foot further. And the patio wasn't shown because it was shown as a deck, I believe, on the first approval. So they want to have one of each. And as far as 22 through 24, we don't have a buyer. We have a buyer currently for 23 who's not asking for even what I have drawn in there. What we're trying to do here is make sure that we're never in front of this. We don't have to come back in front of this commission again if somebody decides, for example, if 22 decides they want a deck and a patio. I don't want to put that burden on Kathleen or any of the town employees. I want to come in here and have the ability, if we decide that if the person does decide they want both, we can allow, we can have both, patio and a deck. These are really the only units in the development that are walkout basements. We're a pretty good distance currently from the wetlands themselves. And then, so what we did is we had them draw it on each one of them. The front of the houses are going to remain pretty much where they are. So the original plans that you see, the box that you see that's in black, that's a 42-foot wide by 54-foot deep box. Some of the homes that we're building are actually 48, 50, or 52 feet deep. So we're not even filling the entire box. So as people select one of the 4 miles, that'll determine the end point of where a deck or a patio would be. So chances are 22 and 23 might be in front of what I'm asking for, but I want it to be able to be signed with a house. The only other one that, unit 25, if you can scroll up to 25, what I'm looking to accomplish in 25 is, if you see the rear of 24, the backyard of 24, it's fairly close to 25. It's really the only place in the development where we have that type of proximity. So what I'm trying to do is give myself a little more separation between the rear yard of 24 and 25. The unit 25 itself, the garage is on the left-hand side. There's only 1 or 2 windows on the left-hand side of the house. So 24 doesn't impact 25 a lot, but 25 impacts 24. So that's what we're looking to do. So 25 is likely to move. The other ones may or may not end up as far back as I'm asking for, or in the upland review areas I'm asking for. Every one of which will be inside of our current area of disturbance.
And just to reinforce what was said, we do allow, because these guys, they're halfway through phase 2 in their units. They've basically completed phase 1. We do allow them minor modifications when they come in. They have to come in for a certificate of zoning compliance for each individual unit. It was obviously approved holistically by the Planning and Zoning Commission and Inland Wetlands. When they do those, sometimes some of the houses are a little smaller because it's a different model than, the just blanket one that they showed at the beginning. And sometimes the units are a little larger or the patio is a little larger. So from us, we just want to make sure that the stormwater, the impervious surfaces balances out at the end of the day, that it can be treated. But we do understand there's always going to be natural minor modifications when they come in for the individual units, just based on what each buyer wants. Where we got into a little bit of a hiccup was these particular units, 20 through 25. If any of those get larger, you're now actually encroaching more into the 100-foot upland review area, which we felt like was out of our purview to be able to approve, because this commission saw it in a certain configuration, and anything going past that, we felt like was outside our ability to approve it. If they kept the back line the same, we were okay with it, but they wanted to go a little further. So that is why they're here, is for that agreement that we and they felt like they were outside. So we asked them to ask for what you want, or to the most extreme of maybe what you want, in order to make sure that if there is modifications for 22, 23, 24, and 25, again, they don't have to come back for each individual unit. They're looking at it holistically. The only real question I have is, every single one of these units have been showed with 1 block in the back, so a patio or something of the sort. You're showing 2. Is that because you want to give yourself the option that you're going to do either or because there is the potential to develop both of those blocks?
Okay, so on 21, the buyer would like both, right? A deck, and normally what we do is underneath the deck, it'll have gravel.
Yes.
Or they might have a patio under there. In this case, they want the patio to be not under the deck. So now I have two separate, structures for last, well, not that I don't know if patio is considered a structure, but they're in two separate spots.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the depths of the house, we really haven't made the footprints really haven't gotten larger. And as far as depth, we still have a 54-foot deep as our deepest house. For example, on on lot 24, the plan that we plan on building there is going to be 42 foot wide and 48 feet deep. So I'm actually going to be 6 foot shorter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really just so that if somebody comes in, I'm not asking again to have a deck and a patio, and I'm asking somebody to do that when, that's what we asked for originally. That's really where we are.
And inland wetland commission planning zoning is separate, so I want inland wetlands to still look at it, but I think we need to have a separate discussion of if this actually meets the spirit of what the planning zoning commission had approved in the sense of having both a patio and a deck, because I don't believe in any of the configurations that they saw during that approval, they had that configuration. So that's a separate issue that I just want to make sure that we have a discussion about whether that requires an amendment to planning and zoning, but let's get you what you guys need here, and then we can issue that as a separate issue.
Okay.
So related to that, is it just these properties that you want to amend to say that there might be both patio and deck, or is it for all properties?
So those are the only foundations that are remaining that are within an upland review area. So what we've done all along is every house that's constructed, when the as-built survey is done, the foundations we keep the existing of the proposed footprint, and then we show the actual footprint. Other than unit 19, there hasn't been very, 20 rather, or 19 rather. There really hasn't been much variation in the shape or, or the direction. But no, that's the only foundations that we're not looking at are units 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 21 through 25. So those are the only ones that are remaining.
On the application and on the plan, it says the limit of that all of this is within the approved limits of disturbance, but is that the case? I see the limit of disturbance is shifted on that plan.
I think that was a drafting error from something old that we didn't change.
So the limit of disturbance is still the limit of disturbance, and that's not moving.
My house, that hasn't changed at all, so.
Do you
The
see-
corner of 25 does look like it's going.
Do you see where I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, and I noticed that too. I'll have to check that out. If it is modified, it's very similar. But the clearing limits, AJ, I don't think you'd have to. We staked all that limited disturbance, so whatever he cleared was where that limited disturbance was. So we'll have to.
Yeah, if you could just clarify that, because if
We'll do it all back.
the limit of disturbance did shift, I just wanted to say that on the application.
Yeah, well, I think we'll pull it back.
We'll pull it back. Right now we're showing where that house is. I'm showing a deck and a patio. It's more likely it's just going to be a deck. And again, we can pull that so we go back to the original.
Yeah, I don't think.
We can go back to the original limit of service.
Okay.
That's what
As it is shown that there is a modification to it. So we'll go back to the original.
I have a question with regard to the upper review area. I think you're calling it the wetland.
WSB.
WSB. So you just point out, please, to the audience where the line seems to go through some of the decks and half.
It goes kind of right along the back of the buildings here. WSB 100.
And then it goes through 25. Did you consider deleting home 25 instead of?
No, that's not an option.
No, it's been approved. All I'm trying to do is, again, we'll go back to the original limit of disturbance. We'll make sure that the house, the deck remains outside of that. On the other side of the development in phase 1, I believe there's spots where we're 35, 40 feet from the actual wetlands.
Just to clarify for you, Rick, that is what we approved, like where that 100-foot
Right.
going through the building. I see what you're saying, but that wasn't changed. Yeah.
My issue was that
Yep.
it came in as 19 homes.
Yep.
these homes were there pretty much, but the homes on the other side, not near wetlands, were not put in. They came back to us a couple years later and asked for 6 more homes to be added to this development. It's 19, now it's 25.
Was initially 27. The first one was 27, the first approval. The wetland approval was initially at 27. Then the new developer came in, who came back in with 19, because that's all that he wanted. He approved that as well. He modified the approval to go down, and then we went back up again. So it was back and forth. But that limited disturbance has been basically the same. The building's been in that general spot.
My point was that if you were going to put 19 homes in, you should have put them in on that western side, not these 5 homes, 6 homes, 20 through 25.
But we're not,
Yeah, that's
we're not,
I know,
we're not debating
I know,
that.
but this.
We just gotta stick to the topic at hand, which is these slight modifications. So trying to go back in time doesn't
I
affect.
get that, but now they're coming back with modifications to go in further, so this is.
That's all we're looking at.
It's insult to injury.
It's not an insult, it's a modification. That's all we're looking at.
Okay, but I maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm
I
sorry.
understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure you understand what we're looking at. We're not looking at what was there before. We're looking at what's in front of us right now.
Can I ask that building 22, it looks like that building moved back and to the left very, very slightly, as well as the 2 boxes on the back?
Yeah, so
What was the point, the purpose of that?
So if you notice, and actually put one more as well. We moved 21 slightly to the left as well. So we still keep the minimum, we have a minimum of 25-foot separation between the units. So we're keeping that same separation. So we moved the 21 a couple feet to the, we moved 22 a couple feet up. The front of it's basically in the same spot. What you're seeing there though on 22 is where you see that jog in the front, that's a jog in front of the house. So that the front of the house is exactly where it was prior to.
Is it pushed back too, though? Like, is that, or is that just my eyes not
I think
reading
it's
it?
drawn, it's slightly longer. It's slight, I'm not sure that we actually made that house any longer.
Yeah.
So that house is still 54 feet. I'm not sure why it's showing beyond if it touches the front, it should touch the back because the house is still only 54 feet deep.
We're only talking about a foot or 2 feet here. It's that far, so it's not, it's blown up here. So in reality, that's not very good.
So I'm not sure it's significant, but I do see what Commissioner Smith is saying, right? So for 25, there's about 25% more of the house now in the upland review area. 25% is a pretty big percentage, right? So I just don't want to dismiss that. I'm not saying I have an issue with that at this point, but there is probably about another 25% of the house now within the upland review area. So I just wanted to kind of recognize that. The question I had, I think, I just want to make sure that I understand what was said. So in the LOD, is the black line or the gray line accurate?
I think we're gonna go back to the gray line because I think I was on vacation and I think that got changed without me knowing.
Okay.
So that should not have happened. It should be pulled back. We're gonna pull that even 25.
West, you're going to pull it,
However we have.
Oh, you are, so you're going to pull the building back?
Back a little bit.
And we can take, on that one, what I'll do is we can eliminate the and or, so there'll be one or the other on that unit.
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems like a much better.
And that solves,
Yeah, that-
you know,
that solves both.
What was,
As it was.
I think you mentioned this before, so I apologize for asking you. You talked about 24 and 25 together, but why is 25 being, I recognize you're going to move it back, but why was it pushed over?
So originally where 24 and 25 are, back of 24 is pretty close to the left side of 25. I'm just trying to give a little more separation to make that house more desirable. That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
You did mention though that 24 was going to be 6 feet shorter.
It's 6 foot shorter, so I'm trying to make it as, I'm trying to, right now we're 25 feet between them. I'm trying to make it, if I could make it 35 feet, it would be more comfortable.
All right, so I think to summarize, we're gonna take 25, we're gonna shift it back a little bit, we're gonna take the LOD line, move it back to where it was, and maybe eliminate
Either or.
the the rightmost
Correct.
patio deck option and just keep it on the left. Okay. I think that summarizes what's planned there, so. Okay, all right, so we'll see that. What else did we want?
Was that shifting 25 back to its original position or no?
I think you're just gonna split the difference.
Split the difference.
Sounds like,
It's gonna have to come back, it's gonna have to come back a little bit, to stay away from the limit of disturbance.
right,
So west, it's gonna go west.
it's gonna go, right. Closer to where it started, but not quite.
And also with the one block in the back, I think that also.
That'll take that corner off.
Above one fly.
Yep.
And again, it's unlikely even on the 22 and 23 that I'm gonna end up with both a deck and a patio. It's the old 20, currently right now, 21. 21 is the only one in the entire development that has even asked for both.
Right,
So,
all right, so I think we got a plan.
Is that something you want to go back in with them?
Yeah, I think as long as we can see that, I think that pretty much covers most of, I think, what our concerns are, so.
We'll have that for the next meeting.
Your road is already, it's already built, your road catch basins. The only reason my engineering head is saying people hate catch basins in their driveways, but if it's done, it's done.
I know. I gotta buy a pipe.
So this will be continued to
Be continued, yeah.
June.
June 11th.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on to public hearings. IWC 2025-03, file number 1526, 2 Victoria Drive, proposed construction of 10,000 square foot daycare and associated site improvements. Central LLC applicant, J. Edwards and Associates LLC representative. This is continued from 5/14/25.
Jason Edwards, and Associates Engineering Surveyors, here on behalf of the applicant. I think they'll carry me online. Questions last time we were here, we had just a few outstanding questions related to, one, essentially the town engineer had 2 outstanding questions that we've answered. The detail regarding the playground material during flooding, we provided a detail and some back and forth with James, and I believe he's good with that, based on the conversation my office had with him. And then the other was the question on the calculations that we used for the flood elevation. Bill Kenny had provided a report that you had requested. I think that got to you guys. And he also modified his plan to remove the reference to 80 herbicides, I believe, so that can take off. So beyond that, there really hasn't been any changes. So we're here to answer questions. Find any more information you need.
I know one of the big concerns was the playground surface and how it's going to be secured. Perhaps you can walk through that more detail.
I did speak to the town engineer, James, on that. He saw the newest submission. There's a 2x8 that's getting anchored to, it's around the entire perimeter of the playscape.
It is around the entire perimeter, Jason. Yep.
He was,
Drawing here that we're looking at?
yes, and he was satisfied with that.
But yeah, if you want to just walk the commission through that detail.
Yeah.
We've got a pressure treated board that's going to be stuck in the bottom on the edge. That acts as a frame essentially, and you'll have that. Yeah, so it'll be nailed to the top of the face of the board, so it'll wrap and then nailed to it, and that then gets sunk down below. And then you've got the turf that's placed. Make sure I'm saying this right before I say it. You got 5 inches of dense grade aggregate going underneath it, and then you've got a 1 inch by 2 inch gap between the fence panel and the turf.
Pressure treated.
Yeah, pressure treated 2x8 fastened to the outside of the fence post. That's going to attach to the fence posts and gets secured to those, and then the wrap goes around so it basically gets wrapped into the roof. And that came from things that.
So the manufacturer, this is their recommended way of securing.
Based on conversations we had with them.
And this is standard, this is a typical detail you'd expect to see for like synthetic turf fields and things like that, that kind of need to be a little tight. And my understanding is that the life cycle of the actual turf and the life cycle of the pressure treated board should be very similar. So when one fails, the other one would get replaced at the same time, and then they would be able to do both together.
What is that, like 20 years?
10.
10 years?
5 to 10 would be something with kids.
And just for the record of me stating technical things, I designed athletic fields and playgrounds for 7 years and am a licensed landscape architect myself.
Depends on how much they're used, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a son,
Well, these kids, trust me, it'll be used all day, every day during warm weather, and even not in warm weather.
Andrew, you went out and visited again.
Yeah, I had a question.
What you saw and what?
Yeah, I had a question about where the specifically wetland flags from 37 to 40, and I did ask Bill Kenny about this the last time, and he did answer the question. But there's a stake out there right now, and I'm wondering if anybody could tell me what this stake is representing. I don't know if anybody was there.
Is it new or is it something that was there?
It's been there. It hasn't been there for years, but it's been there, and it's got a label on it that says P-building, BLDG.
I think it was at one point a building corner, but I don't think it's the accurate building location now. It was probably done when we were doing conceptuals. We haven't staked that since we were doing soil testing.
Okay.
Months ago. So I don't think it makes much right now.
Okay, because this.
It's not in the wetlands if that's.
Right. No, it appears that the wetland flags are well within the wetlands. When I look at this stake and I look at the wetland flags are to one side, and there's actually standing water to the other side between this stake and the wetland flags. So I'm just not sure where that wetland line is versus where that building line is. The limit of disturbance.
I think Bill was here though and stated that he was comfortable with what the flags were on.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, the building, I think that stake is not an accurate representation of the building. I would say that.
And the building was proposed on that, the original building in the 2004 approval was proposed on that side, right, to the.
Yeah, and what we do though, when we do our stakeouts for soil testing, sometimes we'll go out to the GPS and set an approximate corner. So if my guys were out there in the middle of winter, set a stake or something, it wasn't done that accurately. So I think it was probably, maybe over the tape measure or something, just so they knew roughly where they were going to be for the digging festival. So they didn't accurately stake that. So I wouldn't put much credence in it. And also, for all I know, it could have been moved since then too. I don't know. I can't.
So long as it's not representing what it looks like it's representing, which is the corner of the building.
All that information in our software, and the building's definitely not in the wetlands. That's fine.
Are we sure the wetlands haven't changed in the year plus since? Because I know.
So that's another possibility, is if those wetlands have migrated beyond the wetland flags. He had flagged it, I believe he said last year.
But he also said he was just out there, I think, last
meeting right before last night, I think, or any messages. Sure. Yeah,
Paul Stone here, Central LLC owner. I remember at the last hearing, Mr. Kenny testified, because you brought that up at that question, it was a good question. He was very comfortable with it was, because when he was out there just a month and a half ago, I don't know exactly when, he noticed there was, from previous ownership, compacted ground from other activities on the site from previous owners, and that he said was what was likely the cause of seeing that standing water after recent rain. And he was very comfortable with where those wetland flags are. Now, I remember that, I think that's in the record.
That is on the record. That is on the record.
Just wanted to just remind.
Yeah, that is on the record.
Right. Anything else you guys want to add? Questions you guys have? Go ahead.
So on the compensatory storage basin, looks like the top elevation is 3,300, the bottom elevation is 297. And the limit, going up to the 300 around the compensatory storage basin. You talk about that as being wetlands. You're adding 6,000 square feet of wetlands in that's now wet.
That's what Bill Kenny, I believe.
So perhaps Mr. Kenny can explain to me how, I'm not sure that just because it's wet, it's wetlands, how it will support growth of wetland species and has the appropriate hydrology.
It's planted, it has a soil mix that he's proposing from the basin, my understanding. So that there is certain conditions he creates with his planting plant. There's no outlet to that on the bottom or anything, so it's going to hold water, it's going to go back in. That's the way it's designed from an engineering standpoint. As far as the plants and the soil conditions that he's proposing for it, you have to testify to that. But he is calling it a wetland creation, so I assume that he's met the criteria of that.
I would like him to answer that question and tell me how wetland species, specifically turtles and other larger species, are going to get into this compensatory storage area.
You have to, again,
I don't believe he's online.
yeah.
Is he online? He's not.
Okay, well, I don't know that I can call an area wetlands without knowing that it has
Just chambers.
ability to support growth of wetland species and it has the appropriate hydrology.
Well, as a professional soil scientist and landscape architect who's putting that on a plan, I assume he has a criteria based on what that would have to be.
I just didn't see any detail here on the compensatory storage basin, so I'm asking.
There's also no direct intrusion into the wetland, so I don't know if, certainly our intent wasn't to come up with a created wetland to compensate for an area of wetland that was removed. I think what he's trying to do is just accomplish a wet meadow with a seed mix that will provide some value in addition to the, I don't know that it should be evaluated as a created wetland, so to speak. But it
is what he stated on the record.
Right, yeah.
That's why I'm questioning it. I appreciate your response, but I didn't see the detail.
More details on this. I don't know.
I know, I've seen the details, but I don't know how, again, species, the hydrology makes it a wetland. You said it was a wetland.
Again, Commissioner said that I believe Bill Kenny, I see it on the record, he was comfortable with that sheet. I don't know the details of it, but he was comfortable with it as a professional scientist. I just wanted to
I'm aware that there are a lot of turtles in the area, especially a little south of there, where it widens out a bit. And I just, and north of here immediately is the confluence of the Quantic and the North Branch of the Quantic. It's an important confluence in town of our stream, two major streams. So I just had that question. Thank you.
Leslie, Frank and Zabel Schellenberg, applicant. Just to quickly recap, we did show the applicant shown several alternatives, feasible and permanent alternatives, including the prior approval. We do believe based on all of the evidence, including but not limited to the stormwater management plan and the wetland mitigation proposed, that the application is the best alternative. Also, the Inland Wetland Act allows, through the analysis of the prudence of the application, one of the two legs, for a commission to consider the social benefits of the proposed activity. So we would just offer that here we do believe that there's considerable social benefit to early childcare and education.
Question. Don't you think that, yes, there's definitely, childcare is very, very important. But looking at the fact that the corner of the building to the west is in the FEMA flood zone, and just where this is, that you're surrounded by wetlands, I am concerned about the kids. So if you're asking us to look at that, the benefits, I also.
That's a planning and zoning issue, so we don't need to concern ourselves.
He's asking us to consider it.
You can ask us to consider, but we're not going to because it's not in the wetland aspect of things. So,
The building's getting raised out of the floodplain.
Right.
So even if it's in the line, when it's completed, it's going to be outside the flood zone. So you don't have to worry about the flood zone affecting the occupants.
Because they're bringing in a couple of feet of fill and changing the area.
Right.
All in the upper review area of the wetlands, all of it.
That'd be something we will consider.
Yeah.
With the last meeting, we were talking about the use of herbicides, and I noticed the language is still in here.
A couple days ago, that we did remove that.
It's also. Get it back to you. I don't remember the exact plans. Not have to have that. Have that as one.
We agreed to manual approval versus herbicide.
Exhibit 12, exhibit 15 is his latest plan. So. He was looking at exhibit 12, there's exhibit 15.
Perfect. Very good.
So can you just state on the record?
Yeah, stated on the record, it has been taken off of the plans.
Okay.
The latest set of
You're looking at that in the management methods?
management methods, yep.
Yeah. Exhibit 15, right?
That's a big one.
It's the last page.
Yeah.
Number 15. It is the 15, I think.
All right, starting at the end. Do you have any questions or comments?
Questions?
Commissioner Smith, any more questions or comments?
I do not have any additional questions or comments.
I think I'm comfortable. All of James's questions were satisfied. There were a couple that were open.
He said there were a couple of very minor things, clerical things, but
This mostly had to do with planning and zoning, so they wouldn't even be issued as conditions of approval here. It would be dealt with when we got to the planning and zoning.
Said it wouldn't even be a condition of,
Because it's not anything that, he tries to do a review planning and zoning and wetlands at the same time in case a planning and zoning comment would change something that would be in the upland review area. He tries to do it holistically. So I believe his outstanding comments are more of planning and zoning comments, of which we'll address once we get to that stage of the application process.
one more question. In that exhibit number 15, in the management methods, management sequence below it, the monitor prepare, it's number 2A in management sequence. Monitor, prepare, and submit written reports to the Monroe Inland Wetlands Commission. What is would those just be submitted to staff and then relayed to us? Is that essentially?
It would go to staff and staff would review.
Actually, it says
No.
reports to the Monroe Inland Wetland Commission. So I read that to mean that they would be submitted to this commission as a whole, not just staff. So it wouldn't just be relayed, it would be.
It would be, so it'd be provided to staff, and then staff would provide it to us.
Yeah, yeah,
Pull it in.
Yeah. Actually on the agenda item. That's how it's written. So I think that's how it should be executed.
Yep.
No. I do have one other question. It's just a clarification on the gas station. So the gas station is just to show us the proposed possible detention area?
So the feasibility plan, so it just demonstrates that something could be built there. Yeah, and that was what was in the initial plans. Some of the more recent ones. That was shown as the gas station, so we carried that through.
Right. Just wondering why we got this. So.
There are two votes that you will need to take. One for the regulated activity in the upland review area, 2 for a subdivision referral. You were not able to make a vote on the subdivision referral until they proved out conceptually how both items could be developed. So if you give a positive subdivision referral based on the conceptual plans that they're giving you, you're not approving that plan, but you are stating that you believe in some sort of similar fashion that site could be developed.
I'm sorry, the current site or a different?
They're subdividing the site. So 2 Victoria is much larger. They're subdividing it into 2 separate lots. Obviously, they're giving you the proposed plans for the upper side, which is the daycare center.
Right.
They also gave you the conceptual plans for the lower part of the site closest to the street.
But that's just a concept only.
Concept only, but they are showing work within the upland review area.
Right.
So they're saying that the way it can be developed includes upland review area disturbance. So if you give a positive referral, you're not approving that exact plan, but you are approving it in concept that that is a viable potential option for a development.
Which drawing was that?
They submitted it in their last exhibit.
Exhibit
It was with the detail for the playground.
It's okay. Must be this one. Yeah, with the gas pumps. Yeah, this one. Exhibit 14?
Exhibit 14.
Right, yeah.
I do have another question, but I think in terms of procedure, Commissioner Stewart and CBA.
All right, let's keep going. Do you have any questions or concerns? No. Boys, no? Commissioner Sabia?
I do. I have a concern. The corner of the building that's the closest to the wetlands. Real concerned about this. And I think it would just be in our best interest to actually go out and take a look and see where this wetlands is and where the proposed building is going to be. I'm not 100% convinced that it's not going to be a problem in the future. And I would very much like to go and see that, especially that area there.
Am I correct, we're at the end of the 35 days?
We are at the end of the 35 days, public hearing has to be closed, or the applicants will need to grant us an extension.
So what is your specific concern about that corner? Obviously, the location of it, but
I'm just, I'm going to be as blatantly blunt here as I possibly can. I wasn't convinced that the wetlands are where they are. I know that, I'm sorry, Mr. Covey mentioned in the last meeting that he was confident that that's where the wetlands markers are. But with everything going on and rain and changes, I'm not 100% convinced that that's where they are. I would like to go and see the area for myself.
Would the applicants be open to granting us an extension?
Extension would be.
An extension to June 11th?
So you have 65 days that you can apply to any part of the application process to extend it. We would be asking and you would be granting 14 days to the public hearing portion of the process. It would be to the next meeting, so a specific date. So if for some reason at that meeting they wanted more, you would have to grant another extension, of which case you could permit or deny it.
We want all the commissioners to be comfortable with what we're doing. And I'm just trying to understand the logistics of it, like what would we discover by walking out there that we, on prior to January 11th?
June 11th.
No, I
June
guess.
11th.
I'm not the only one mixing up numbers.
Sorry.
Been there.
I don't know what, I want to say yes, because I want everyone to be comfortable with what we're doing, and I think we have a good plan here. I just don't know what we're going to accomplish between now and then if we haven't already, I guess would be my question.
I guess that would be for the commissioners who are concerned about that corner to put their eyes on it.
I mean, let them answer, what the commissioners.
So if we go, we said 2 weeks, I mean, to January 11th, I'd like to move along. I know we're getting towards the end here.
so we've already heard that there's standing water in some of the areas that are not considered wetlands based on the compact soil. So there's a good chance you're going to still see that water that's sitting in the compacted area. But the soil scientist, correct me if I'm wrong, has already stated that that is not considered wetland based on his scientific examination of what's there. Unless we have that retested, he's going to state the same thing and say, yeah, there's some water there, but it's still based on the disturbance that was there in the compacted soil and all that. So I think you're probably still going to see some water there. I don't know how that may or may not affect your opinion. Like I said, unless we have it retested.
Right.
And that's an option, but that's up to the applicant to have to go through that process.
I'm just more concerned because, just the area as a whole. With how important these areas are in wetlands. I just think it would be within our, for lack of a better word, it should be something that we go and look at. Just because of how important this area is. That's honestly my personal opinion. I can't speak for anyone.
No, I'm with you.
I think I would feel more confident in my analysis of everything here if I saw the exact, the area where the building was going to be, the wetlands and everything. I think I would just be more comfortable with that than just, saying, just going into deliberations without actually seeing the location.
Okay. So that's up to the applicant to grant the extension and also offer an invitation for you to go and look at it. So that's up to you guys.
Can can we do that and then you guys can deliberate? I mean, the hope is here that we could close the hearing and maybe discuss, I was hoping for a vote.
Once we close a public hearing, we can't,
You can't
they
go
can't
visit.
add any more
They can't
additional
go visit.
information, and visiting the site is adding the additional information to it.
You know, Commissioner Sevilla, hopefully I'm pronouncing it.
That's okay.
I feel we have a top-notch scientist on it. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, and he stated on the record that he feels very comfortable with it. I'd like to get 100% everyone on board with a comfort level. I think Bill Kenny did a good job of that last week, but maybe it didn't get you sort of across that threshold. Is the rest of the commission comfortable with not going on? I want to be cooperative here, but I need to move it along because I've got a lot of other pressures on this particular project if there's that.
Is there anybody else who feels the need to go and walk the property?
I would definitely go along and walk the property, but not being a soil scientist, I just don't know. I mean, it's wet. I don't know what, I'm thinking that if you really have concerns, Andrew, because you've been out there and you've seen these ponds, then we need to have it be done, because the wetlands have changed in the last few years on that plot. So
What's your backup for that statement? Because that's not what this.
well, when they took out the cement slab for the Quonset hut, wetlands filled in, and as did some immature forest per.
How long ago was that though? Because I think you said the last soil test was just a month.
Yeah, I'm just stating that I don't have a problem. We probably should have asked for a site visit up front. What my concern is that, what you saw, Andrew, and because more than we do. We're not soil scientists.
I think the issue is Bill Kenny did not deny the fact that there is standing water there and that there is even some potential species that can exist in wetland area. Connecticut, the state of Connecticut defines wetlands by soils, and his delineation is based on the soils, and he went out to revisit the site this season, and it's very common to ask them to review if they still agree with their flagging from a year ago, and he stated he did. So going to visit the site in the sense of trying to figure out if the wetlands moved, nobody here, including Andrew or myself, have that technical background to make that statement. So if that is truly the question at hand, either you ask Bill Kenny again, or you would have to get a third-party wetland soil scientist to go out and restate the wetlands, as a third party. I would say, though, typically, we do those things not at day 35 on the public hearing. So I think the question is what has changed in the last several weeks that is now prompting this as compared to the very beginning? Because I don't feel like the plan has changed. And Bill Kenny was here 2 weeks ago to talk about this, of which case none of these requests were made at that time. So I just want to make it focused that we are addressing the concerns that have been raised by the exhibits that have been submitted over the last 2 weeks.
So Andrew's concerned that, his view of the lot and his concern is what I'm reacting to. I don't know how to resolve it.
So Bill Kenny had answered, I had the concern. I've been out there 3 times. I still see the same thing that I see.
Yeah.
By us going out and doing a site visit, we're not going to see anything different than what I've seen. And we have an answer from a professional for what it is I'm observing.
We would need an independent.
If you're not comfortable with that, if you're not comfortable with that, then you could ask for more.
The thing about the soils, and Kathleen described it perfectly, is that when the soil scientist determines whether it's wetlands or not, they dig a hole down and they look down in the dirt. That doesn't change quickly or even slowly. It takes a long time waterlogged to change the soil. So the only way the wetlands line is gonna change is if there's a difference of opinion a little bit between scientists, or if there's a big massive erosion or sedimentation along a stream, that'll change your wetlands. But as Kathleen said, you can't say, I think there's wetlands there, because we're not an expert.
No.
We have to hire an expert that's gonna say their expert is wrong before we could battle it.
And wetlands do migrate, and I'm not ignoring that that exists, but usually not in the course of a year. Normally, we typically accept wetland delineations up to 5 years because that's a pretty conservative range to make sure that, you know, there's been no migration. We won't accept something from 10, 15, 20 years ago because absolutely wetlands can migrate, you know, during that time period.
I'm cognizant of the Amazon parking lot and other changes that have been made in the area, including the Ole Soccer, which put in a synthetic, we allowed them to take the turf out and put in synthetic. That's, you know, there's a difference in drainage near the wetlands. So there are things happening in the wetlands recently. And
In the wetland.
Again, I'm not an expert. I've never said I was. I'm concerned that Andrew was concerned.
And his concerns have been addressed by an expert. And, you know, again, we've talked about maybe going out to what benefit.
I'd like to
And just for clarification on what this commission can and cannot ask for and what the applicant can and cannot grant is they do not have to grant an extension, of which case then we need to follow the state statutes of that we close the public hearing in 35 days. Also, if a applicant does not grant access to their site, so if you have a site walk and it's quorum and the public wants to access the site and the owner thinks the liability is too great and they say no, that means we can't have a site walk in general. That is not a valid reason to deny an application because you were not able to visit the site. Case law will support that. You as a commission can make and should make a decision based on the information that's presented to you, especially when it has full sets of plans and things of that nature. This is not an incomplete application. We're not missing a part of that application. And a site walk, although is helpful, is not mandatory.
Can I ask one final question? Can you just confirm again when the most recent soil test was performed?
Bill stated on the record last time he was here, but it was done just before the application, and he was out there a couple of months ago. Yes.
Within the last 5 years?
Yeah.
I have no further questions.
Yes.
The delineation, I believe, was last year, but if you want to know that, let us know that. He should have a note. Someone should have a note somewhere on these drawings, I imagine, that we can do. I believe it was last year he actually delineated it. The concern was that he hadn't been out this year and to redelineate it, like this calendar year. But he said he physically visited the site and visually checked the flagging and agreed with his flagging from a year ago.
But look, my point is it's a moot point because if the ruling is within 5 years and
It's not, I don't think there's a rule. I don't think there's anything on the record. I think just standard wise, we typically accept up to 5
yeah,
years.
I don't have any other questions.
Could I just ask, because this is a public hearing due to potential impact to the wetlands, we have to agree or disagree that there is not a prudent and feasible alternative that is better, that there is no other. We've not talked a lot about those alternative plans. I've reviewed them. I assume that the rest of the commission has as well. Is there anything that we need to take into consideration before we move to
Well, we're in the public hearing process, so this is the fact finding portion of it. This isn't deliberation. So to your point, I think it's a good point to request to the commissioners. Do you have any questions on those alternatives? And anything related to, yes, you will have to apply the proven and feasible alternative test to your decision-making process.
Any other questions or comments from the board here?
The county report says it's field delineated in June 2024 and an additional inspection was made in March 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And certainly we think that visiting, I mean, Commissioner Sabia's comments are good, but I mean, certainly visiting the site is a good thing. I happen to agree that you kind of need to parse it out and figure out what are you going to glean from that inspection. If it's wetland delineation, I don't think you're going to glean that from an inspection. I mean, the soil scientist uses a 4-foot auger. He's looking for, model soil that's 2 feet down. We're probably not going to glean that from a site inspection, but laying eyes is certainly a good thing. I've been up there several times. We installed the sign per your regulations so that the commissioners would know where to find that and access it. So hopefully most of you had the opportunity to take a look at it.
At this time, we'll open it up to the public to come forward. Anybody in the chambers who wants to speak about this application? Anyone online raise their hand?
Give us one moment. You gotta get out of it. X. You're in panelists, you need to be in attendees. Oh, Bill Kenny did join at one point, and unfortunately we had not seen it, so let's.
So welcome to chime in. I mean,
We are going to allow to talk, and if
Good evening. Can you hear me?
yes. So sorry we did not see you join. We did check at the beginning when we opened this and hadn't seen you on there, so I apologize.
That's all right. I understand. Sorry
You're
that I was late.
Screaming at the computer trying to talk.
That's all right. I don't have anything in particular to add except that I think what's been described, what I said at the last meeting, that was consistent with my understanding of what I stated and my position with regard to the wetland mapping. And I'll add that I agree that typically you're not going to find a change in the wetland unless either someone has altered the land in some way or altered water flow that contributes to that wetland or draws water away from that wetland. But either somebody fills it or grades it in some other way or cuts into it or diverts water away from it. Otherwise, you're not going to see changes. And as mentioned by the commissioner, in our field, there's differing opinions between professionals from time to time. That certainly happens as well. There's a lot of professional judgment that goes into this.
did you hear Commissioner Smith's comments about the basin there?
About the Amazon.
No, about the
Yes.
wetlands in the basement. Yeah, that's excellent.
So since we got you, do you remember what he was asking specifically? You want to re-ask that question?
Yes, sir. Bill, so the compensatory storage basin, you described it as being wetlands, but I'm wondering what you're going to do that's going to support the growth of wetland species and assure that it has appropriate hydrology to become actual wetlands.
My recollection is, and unfortunately I don't have the drawings in front of me, but that just by lowering that and then directing water to it, it will over time become a wetland system. I've just seen it time and time again with basins like that. And in fact, there's
That you can share. That's great.
there is that basin that was constructed last year on at the cul-de-sac at Cambridge Drive.
I guess so.
Can you guys hear me or is there a problem?
Yes,
Yeah, sorry,
you can.
what's your plan up, Bill? It's on the screen here. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay.
Can you see the plan?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it may be Jason's plan would be more helpful because it shows more clearly the drainage, proposed drainage. I will say whether it's a wetland or not a wetland, I think is what's most important is that it's going to be vegetated in a natural way and it's going to collect water and allow it to either evaporate or be taken up by the plants. It's going to be filtered by the plants. And it's a excellent buffer between the development and certainly the most important wetland and watercourse resource at the property, which is the river. So it's a great buffer in that way. It's hard to predict exactly how wet it's going to be, but I'm confident that it will be wet. It is going to vary it's going to be a gradation of different levels of wetness.
Just to weigh in a little bit here, Jason Edwards for the record. The way this is designed is the bottom of this pond and the bottom of this large detention system, or the compensatory storage system is all level. So but it has an outlet that will not, it retains the first 1 inch plus of rain in there. So every time it rains, small amount of rain, you're going to get the water's going to sit in that basin and in the underground system. So it's not going to outlet until it gets to a certain event, and then it will start to outlet, but still retains that water quality volume.
Right.
So water will
My concern is that water is going to have some washing of the cars and
No,
oil and
that's
the gas and the.
That's separated. The two systems are separated, so it should not have any pollutants in it.
What material will be used in that basin, like to construct it and then, I assume you put some soil and some plantings around it?
Yeah, Bill would have
That detail?
what he got in there for plantings, but otherwise it would just be your typical, existing ground and then whatever you're going to use for common fill.
That is detailed in the.
Yeah, I think Bill's got the details.
Okay. We're still technically in the public participation. Is there anybody else online that wants to chime in?
There's no one else online.
No one else online, okay. All right. Do the commissioners have any other follow-up questions now that we're coming to the end here? Anyone?
I will make a motion to close this public hearing and move to deliberations.
We have a motion to close. Do we have a second?
I have a second.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that unanimous?
Did we get unanimous vote there?
Okay. Moving on to public hearing, IWC 2021-06R-A1, file number 1376, 64 Cambridge /4 Independence Drive, Proposed modification to reduce net fill quantity and modify the method of wetland restoration. Astro Landholding LLC and Spacely Landholdings LLC applicant. Mary Blackburn, LLC representative, and this is continued from June 11th, 2025.
So it's continued to June 11th, 2025, so it will not be, it is not being heard tonight, and it will be continued to the next meeting. That was a request by the applicant. They were requested for, to grant, an extension, because we were in a public hearing, so there were 35 days, of which they wrote us a letter and was, for the record.
We need to offer public. Do we need to offer public comment?
Or we, because we were able to notice it and the agenda that it was being continued, we are not hearing discussion on it tonight. It'll be continued to June 11th.
All right, deliberations, nothing there. Bond releases, nothing there. And then we got,
Deliberations.
well, do we want to deliberate that tonight or do we want to deliberate that next time?
I think we would ask that you start deliberations tonight, and if the board comes to a consensus to give staff direction on if you want an approval, a denial, or in some special sessions, some special times, both, so that Andrew just has some guidance on how to prepare for that meeting. Because both an approval has conditions of approval that need to be written, and the denial needs to have agreed upon by the board reasons for a denial.
Okay, let's open up the deliberation. So, anybody want to start? Anybody have any comments or questions? Can we go right to a vote?
You're talking about 169?
No.
No, we're talking about 2 Victoria.
Victoria, yeah.
I think that we should direct the staff to write a draft motion of approval. I think that they have a lot. They should have the right to develop it. It is close to the wetlands. It seems like it's 100% in the upland review area, but it is an industrial park. And from what I recall, it has a history of having the same use there proposed. So, and you know, I'm not totally happy that they're in the floodplain, but they have provided the compensatory storage, and they have provided the retention of the 1.3 inches of stormwater. So you're not going to see much coming off that, and you also have a walkway between them and the river. So I'm feeling fairly comfortable at this point.
Any other comments, questions?
Just point out that industrial park or not, this is not industry going in there. These are children.
Okay.
In the case of an emergency, they don't necessarily know what to do. I know you don't want us to consider it, but I appreciate the owner wanting to develop the property, but the location tells me that I'm not convinced that it should be under the current plans.
A location related to wetlands.
What?
Well, I would have liked to had some options besides what they came to us were 3 plans for a child care center in the center of the wetlands. I understand that they have to do some compensatory things, bring the building up, change the area a little bit. It's all.
That's floodplain, so that's under the floodplain manager. So if you are going to vote for denial, I'm trying to consolidate what you're saying is you don't feel it's appropriate for its location to the wetlands.
Yes, that's.
Okay. Your reasonings just had to do with floodplains that you just listed.
Right, the wetlands is in some change. There is some changing happening there. We know that.
We don't know that. Based on the soil science, it hasn't changed. So to make that assumption, I think is an
Based
error.
on the environmentalist, Bill, he said, yes, that when they took out that pad for the Quonset hut, that there was some wetland reclamation. And as a matter of fact, there was an immature forest coming up in that area. So to me,
Immature forest doesn't necessarily mean wetland. I just want you to be careful. You're not a soil scientist, so making those claims without scientific evidence to back it up, you just be aware of what you're stating. Because we have a soil scientist that has testified as to what he found.
and part of that was the reclamation of some wetlands once the cement pad was removed. There's changes.
Right, but from what he stated, you're not gonna get a wetland in the couple of months that they've removed that pad, that it takes years in order to create a wetland.
I mean, if it was a wetlands underneath the pad, it could have had wetland soils underneath the pad. They pull this
Right.
pad up and then the wetlands plants come back because now there's nothing on top of them. It's nothing that changes other than the fact that you've restored the wetlands.
Well, what I heard was that there was wetland reclamation and it's starting to change, although it's not a mature forest. He indicated that there was significant change in that area. That's what I heard.
I'm just concerned that if nothing gets done, because what we asked them is, what will this look like in a few years? And the invasive species will continue to take over and turn us into more of a difficult place. And those invasive species will continue to get worse and worse. So doing nothing seems like maybe worse than doing something.
It hasn't reclaimed it in many years. They went back on the history of the lot for probably 15 years. I forget how many years it was, but
My feeling as far as the use, you mentioned about having children there, it's an industrial park. I mean, to me, having children next to wetlands is a lot better than having an industry
Oh, absolutely.
next to the wetlands.
That, I was thinking the
Then
same
we
thing.
definitely have something, in my
Right.
opinion, to talk about.
Right.
But you're not, if you can't have this use, you don't know what you're gonna get.
Right. It's not a major, chemical factory or
Yeah, or someone pushing
underground
on
storage
gravel or
tanks.
or
Right,
anything.
exactly.
warehousing could be other things, just not children.
I don't think that that's necessarily our area of concern, but I also don't understand why that's a concern. Why that's a concern for you.
There's already sports fields there's already kids in the area playing sports. So it's not like this is a high trafficked, bulldozer, heavy equipment area that all of a sudden they're putting kids in. But again, it's not for this commission to decide. That's a planning and zoning issue. So I think we need to table that.
I don't know what else to say if it's not clear that, because we need to preserve the inland wetlands. And I don't feel like this project, this application fully does that.
You don't feel like it mitigates the impact to wetlands provided by the upland review area for what reasons?
Because they have to do some major changes in the area. They have to bring the parking lot up a couple of feet and the building up a couple of feet, and they have a compensatory that require them to have a compensatory storage basin, and
I think those are all arguments in favor of what they're doing though, right? That's not a negative, that's a positive that they're doing that to prep the area appropriately, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the alternatives, alternative 3.2 does not include that proposed detention basin, which I view as a positive. Instead, the site is actually right in that space. The playground part of the building. If you look at site one, the detention basin is there, but then the way that the building and the playground is set, it goes back into this proposed wetland native seeded meadow. So they are preserving those spaces and providing areas where wetland species can exist and thrive. They are staying, I think, as far away from the true wetlands as possible. I understand the concern, but I also think that this application is doing everything that's possible to preserve the wetlands.
I don't know why you don't see the major changes as being somewhat, they're portrayed as having no impact at all to the wetlands. And I just, I find that hard to believe, the amount of impervious surfaces as well as the playground area, which is not native. It's it's got foam and stuff. It's not going to have the retention rate of normal ground. It's not covered with man-made materials. So I'm not gonna, I want to believe at the point. I think it's very clear, but you don't see it that way.
I'd like to add to the discussion here, just that if we're talking about the impacts to the wetlands, I don't like that we're really close to the wetlands like that. But I think the impact to these wetlands are actually a positive one based on the applicant's approach to the wetlands. Okay, so they're doing a significant amount of work eradicating or potentially eradicating invasive species that are there, and they're doing a very extensive native planting. So I think the impact to the wetlands is actually a positive one. I would, I don't like that it's, 5 feet away. I don't like that there's a lot of impervious surfaces, but, they've proven to us that the amount of water coming off this site is actually less than what it would be without the development. So
It's a net benefit.
I see it as a benefit.
Yeah, I agree. Kathleen, anything?
We disagree that 5,000 feet of playground that's pervious, not natural, and then another 27,000 square feet of impervious surfaces, not, we just disagree on that.
I'm just saying it's not having a negative impact on the wetlands. If we're talking about impact on the wetlands.
17,000 square feet of impervious and 5,000 of pervious, but not natural. And then, although it will be wet in the required compensatory storage basin, I don't know that it's going to be all of a sudden, functioning complete wetlands, and that it will actually support growth and have the appropriate hydrology despite the filtering.
Will be better than what's currently there now.
It hasn't been grown over by all invasive species yet, and it's taken quite some time to get there. So
that wasn't my question. My question is, do you think what they're doing will be better than if they do nothing the way it is right now?
No, I don't think it will be better.
We can agree to disagree on that. Kathleen, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'm here to facilitate the conversation. I'm not here to be part of the deliberations. That is on the commission.
All right. Do we want to draft some options for us to move forward with? Or do we want to go right to votes?
No, I do not want to vote. If you guys approve, I would like to make sure we're all clear on what potential conditions of approval would include. And if you deny it, again, it has to be denied based on a consensus of what that denial is. It can't be, the board, the commission has to have a consensus for it as compared to people's individual opinions.
What are our conditions of approval? Let's start with that.
Did you have any potential conditions? Does again, I think we said James' outstanding comments for planning and zoning.
Right.
He has bonding. Did James complete his bond recommendation? So if he has a bond associated, that would be a condition of the approval. Was there anything else that you had heard? No. So maybe there are no conditions of approval unless there's somebody.
Anybody here have any conditions of approval before we?
I think they addressed the playground concern and they addressed the oversight concern.
Standard conditions.
Yeah, which were both of those options. So standards of conditions with bond. That makes it easy to draft.
And if there's commission members that want a motion to deny, you just have to give some reasons, some real wetlands reasons why you want it, and then they can draft it up and we'll talk about it.
So
Or think about it for the next meeting.
are there any other conditions of approval that we want to add to this list? Because right now,
Wetland markers.
Do they not have wetland markers? No. Then yeah, we can add that to it. And we can add some that night if we need to. We just like to prep as much as possible to make sure we're giving you something that makes sense.
Regarding the positive referral for the subdivision,
Yes.
if we have concerns about, I mean, what is the impact if we don't provide that positive referral?
The Planning and Zoning Commission is the one that makes the final determination as part of their subdivision review process. They require a referral from inland wetlands. They require a referral from Conservation and Water Resource Commission, and they take all of those things into consideration. So you guys aren't approving or denying, you're giving a positive referral or a negative referral and allowed to state. Basically what happens is after we have a discussion, we kind of come up with a statement, and even bullet points associated with that statement would be fine, of like, it's a positive referral, but there's concerns with X, Y, and Z. It's a negative referral because of X, Y, and Z. And then I write them up a letter, and then that letter reflecting what was voted upon as part of the discussion, and then I submit that letter to it. So although it's a vote, because I want it to be a consensus from the commission of what you're communicating, it's not an approval or denial, it's a referral.
And there's less impact to it, because if we don't give that referral, does not mean we're denying anything, like you
You
said.
have to give a referral. You have to give a positive or negative referral. Like they need a piece of paper from you guys, what your opinion is on the subdivision.
we have to say why we don't like it, or
Yeah.
Am I wrong to feel like if we give a positive referral, we're kind of handcuffing ourselves on some level in later conversations?
So I think we give this example for like the residential subdivisions where we've seen them try to do interior lots, commonly known as flag lots, where they'll have like a 25-foot strip of land and then it'll go to a larger area, and that 25-foot strip of land is literally 2 feet from a wetland. If you guys approve that, you're saying that you think that's a buildable lot, that you believe that there is a avenue in order to permit some sort of driveway, that meets the zoning regulations to go to this. And I think in the past, you guys have looked at the applicant and said, no, that's not going to fly. Like, we're not going to approve a driveway that close to the wetland that crosses a wetland or does this or does that. We don't think that's a buildable lot. We don't think it's feasible. Of which case I believe they've changed some of their plans, and then that's how they've gotten a subdivision referral. So they're showing you that the way they believe they can feasibly improve both of these lots require a certain amount of disturbance within the wetland upland review area, and that they're showing you what they think that potentially could look like. So you're handcuffing yourself. Handcuffing is such a strong word, but like, You're telling them you believe there's a reasonable, feasible way to develop it that will include some disturbance within the upland review area to the capacity of which they're generally showing. But you're not saying the building is here, the parking lot is here, this is here, but you are saying you believe it's a buildable lot. Now, if they come in and they're showing you a little bit of disturbance in the upland review area and you say, no, I don't want any disturbance there, and you deny it, you guys did vote on a positive referral that you felt like it was a, feasible lot to build upon. So you're not approving the plan, but you are approving the feasibility of developing the lot.
And a negative referral does not mean they can't bring an application forward and we may.
And they're already in front of planning and zoning. They're not in front of planning and zoning for the daycare facility. They are in front of planning and zoning for the subdivision. They have submitted an application and will be heard. So no, they can bring one forward, but the Planning and Zoning Commission does need a referral from inland wetlands as to your opinion.
So moving back to the application for the daycare. So we have a short list of
Conditions of approval. We don't have anything for,
list of,
and on the approval, the limited disturbance, to be staked out before any ground disturbance takes
That's a
place.
good one. That's a good suggestion.
Because we are so tight.
right, I agree.
Silt fence has already been shown on the plan, so we don't have to state that as a condition of the approval.
Any other approval conditions? Okay. Okay. Then moving on to the denial.
Reasons for denial?
Is for denial.
I've already stated clearly. I don't know if.
We got to reiterate them to,
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's clear that I'm the only one who's thinking this way, but
we want to articulate them now in the event that it doesn't pass vote. So we got to articulate it. So for the record, can you state again what your specific objection is?
I believe that there will be significant impact to the wetlands in the area due to its close proximity and what they're doing with the lot and increasing the altitude of the elevation and the compensatory. I just wish they would leave it alone or come in with a different business.
How do we
I don't know
articulate that?
how to put that, Kathleen.
That's enough of, if that's the reasons, that's the reasons.
Are those considered valid reasons?
That's not mine job to make that determination. It's this commission's.
Well, I mean, is that something that, it sounds to me a little soft in that it's not like a hard statistic that we're not meeting or it sounds like, yeah, I'm not a fan, so I don't want to vote for it.
Well,
So I don't know how we can deny it based on, I don't like it.
again, it has to be a consensus opinion by the commission. So if it's not a consensus.
It's clear to me that there will be some negative impact of this building being in this location with this purpose.
Anybody else have any other reasons they want to bring up?
No.
Onward and upward. Okay. I
All
guess
right. So the deliberations will be continued to the June 11th meeting, of which case we do anticipate a vote at that time.
Okay. All right, now, do we want to, what's the next one we can deliberate?
You need both of the regulars, right?
Yeah. The 1271 Monroe Turnpike, right? We close that one? Close that one?
Question? We continued that one.
Continue that.
1271 Monroe, okay.
Continued to June 11th.
Yeah,
And we will draft an approval.
I think they were gonna update the plans to show 25 differently and the LOD differently.
Yep.
So we're not deliberating on that tonight.
All right, so that's it? That's all we're deliberating?
I
Okay,
believe so.
all right. So then moving on to agent activities report.
Agent activities, so we have a couple of agent approvals, IAA 25-15, file number 1539 is 25 Old Coach Road. It was repair to an existing deck with the upland review area within, and the upland review area, and there are new footings which fall in the upland review area, which cause ground disturbance, which is what prompted the agent approval. Conditions of the approval were to put up silt fence, pre and post construction inspections, and put up wetland markers further down where the wetlands are. And then I added IAA 25-13, file number 1540, which is 134 Millbrook Terrace. Installation of a 15 by 30 in-ground pool with a 10 by 5 rain garden for stormwater management within the upland review area. The location of the pool is 60 feet off of wetlands, surrounded by already established lawn. Leaving 40 feet of lawn between, by the time it's all said and done, finished being built, there'll still be 40 feet of established lawn before wetlands. Conditions of the approval were to install silt fence with pre and post-construction inspections, install wetland markers along the wetland line, and all the excavated material to be removed from the upland review area. I didn't necessarily need them to move it off-site, just so long as it's not in the upland review area.
This is above ground?
In ground.
In ground.
In ground. So there's a significant amount of material coming out of there, so part of the conditions of the approval were to get that material outside the upland review area. And then I added IAA 25-16, file number 1541, which is 51 Harmony Lane. Removal of one large tree and 3 smaller trees within the wetland area, and it was for safety concerns. We're talking about a 120-foot tulip tree, and it's probably 30 feet away from the house. I went out, put eyes on it. I mean, the tree's not unhealthy, but it certainly looked pretty daunting, especially being a tulip tree, softwood, large canopy, and if it did come down. So I issued a agent approval on that. Conditions of that approval were for the stump to remain, no heavy equipment to be used within the wetland area, and the debris to be removed from the site. So they certainly would need a chipper out there, but I allowed them to have the chipper in the upland review area, but not in the wetland area. Any questions?
All right, moving on.
Moving on,
All right, so now we're on to correspondence.
about voluntary compliance, wanted to just let you know about that also. 370 Hammertown.
All right.
Yep. 370 Hammertown Road. There's an existing storage shed that's falling into the wetlands. There's a brook right next to it. It really had to do with the storm last year, the flooding event from last year. That kind of washed the foundation away from the, when the water breached the bank, the foundation was kind of washed away, and now this building is kind of sliding its way down into the brook. So in speaking with them, it wasn't something that they did, that they caused. The shed's been there since 1950. It's more of a garage, but asked them to voluntarily comply to removing it before it actually falls in. And they are aware of it, they're compliant with it.
Remove it, not move it.
What's that?
They're gonna remove it.
Yeah, well, they were talking about reusing it. But first off, it's right next to a brook and it's really in bad shape. I mean, not being a builder, I'm looking at it and saying like it would be way more to try to rebuild this thing and repair it than it would be to remove it. So they're all on board with removing it. But they are going to need some time to do that. It's going to be a pretty good expense. There's all sorts of other things there, building materials, steel, and it's all in upland review area, skunk cabbage growing all around it. I will have them, stabilize the site when it's done. They will need to use machines to get that building out of there, load it into dumpsters.
Give them a time frame.
We had talked about 365 days. They're actively seeking a contractor that will, and they will get me a letter this week with a time frame. I was thinking giving them a year to do it. I don't know how you feel about that.
Depends on how close it is to falling in the river.
Yeah. One more 500 years storm or whatever it was.
They covered
Probably do it. It's a brook. I mean, it's not a river, it's a brook, but we certainly don't want anything falling in there.
Right.
He said he would start cleaning it up, but the bulk of it is pretty heavy lifting.
Right.
And it's going to run into a pretty good expense for him. So I did ask him for a time frame, and that's what was
That's what he says, yeah.
We'll see what he says. And I'll report back to you.
Yep. All right, now moving on to correspondence.
Okay.
I guess we all received this letter from Mr. Cuseo. I'm a little concerned with the way it was addressed to all of us, but as if it was sent out from the town of Monroe with a return address of.
So I'm just going to state on the record that staff was given a copy of this letter tonight. So it has come to our attention that the letter was sent to individual members of the Inland Wetland Commission with a return address purporting to be from the town of Monroe Inland Wetland Commission in connection with the April 9th, 2025 Inland Wetlands meeting regarding 68 East Village Road. I just wanted to be stated on the record that this letter was not issued by the town of Monroe, the Inland Wetland Commission, or any staff member affiliated with either entity. Despite its appearance, the letter improperly represented itself as official correspondence from the town. My recommendation tonight was that we added it to correspondence because it was correspondence that was given to the Inland Wetland Commission, which is why it's being discussed. I would also recommend that staff send Mr. Cuseo an email letting him know that it was discussed at tonight's meeting and reiterating what I had just stated on the record, so that this does not continue to occur in the future. We now have a copy of it, and we will be adding a letter to his violation file or remediation file if it transitions into one officially. Does it have an official? Sorry. It just has an IWB.
Yeah,
The
that's what our
it has an.
mandate here.
Does it have an IWB?
It does have an IW.
So it'll go into the official violation file for the record, and then each member of this commission had seen it, and you can see his concerns about that meeting and how it was conducted.
Is there any greater concern about, I guess for public officials, so like him looking up our addresses and mailing us something with a return address to the town of Monroe? Is that like
fraudulent?
Pretty,
Reason.
I was gonna say devious.
problematic for certain.
I completely understand your concerns, and as somebody who actually had a resident try to get out where I lived in a public hearing on the record when I have children and, things like that, I completely understand your concerns. I completely understand your concerns. I do understand how that would give you more than just pause. And I am happy to CC our attorney on the email that I give to them. And I am asking that they include their attorney, which is CC'd on their letter as well, so that it's part of their record.
Typed CC'd at least. Typed.
Yeah.
Type CC, yeah, I don't have any.
What is, can we just since this is a topic that we haven't planned on, but it's here, what was the date that we set for the violation?
I believe it was July 1.
I'll have to get back to you, but I believe it was July.
It was, but then I thought it was talked about moving.
I thought we moved it up based on new information and.
We originally had it for mid-July and then there wasn't a meeting in mid-July, so we moved it closer.
Okay.
So that made it beginning of July. I'll have to
I
check.
thought we moved it
I
up.
sworn we moved it to June.
I thought so too,
First because of,
or whatever our first June meeting
the
was.
first
Yeah.
June meeting was.
I'll have to double.
I think that,
Check
I
that.
think he's right.
We'll double
check
check
that.
that and
Yeah.
make sure to track that.
Maybe just send a reminder of that to him as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, like, he's stating like, I'm just gonna go back to the original permit, but that original permit is still causing a violation. Like, I don't think,
He's considering the letter from the curb cut. He's referring to that. I believe he's
Yes, he's
referring to
the
that
highway curb cut.
when he's saying for his original approval, which is not an approval.
right,
It is an approval, but it's approval
Not from-
from
not
the
from
road
wetlands.
to the property line.
right. And that doesn't change the fact that there's still a violation on his property that needs to be addressed.
In our opinion, no.
Right. So either way, he has a violation that has not been addressed or corrected as of yet. And the clock is ticking very quickly.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to minutes for our 5:14 meeting.
Yes.
I'm sorry, before that is the public outreach, right?
No, no,
No, it's usually.
Minutes are first.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Take your turn.
Throw me all off it. I went through the minutes. I did see, I was initially given them before they were printed. I did see some things I made, I had them changed and I am, okay with the minutes as they are written.
I'll motion to approve the minutes from the May 14th, 2025 meeting, regular meeting.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Aye.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now you've got the floor for public.
So for public outreach, we've talked about this pamphlet. I had a couple of comments. Ben had a couple, no, Rick had a couple of comments. Mark's made those changes. So we're looking for anybody else's input. At the last meeting we had talked about, if you could make notes on these and then we would compare those notes. But if you had made notes, if you have read through the content of this, we'd like to hear about that. I've made all my comments, and they've been changed. Ben?
I mean, other than Nancy, I think the only one, and I don't know if it was talked, oh, yeah, we had talked about the picture in the middle. It's a little too faint. I don't know if there's any possibility of enhancing that.
To what? I'm sorry.
Faint?
Paint?
Yeah,
Is your
to like,
concern the faintness or the resolution?
well, resolution, but
Yeah.
it's really difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have, so that's from CAD. I don't know if we have the original CAD file to re-export it in order to make the resolution better. I think all we have is what we have in the files. I think the question was, does James have access to it? I think that was the question.
What is the image we're
meeting.
talking about?
This drawing down here,
the detail of the,
Uh-huh.
I could darken it up.
you can darken it up, but and that was my question. I remember last time, I think the question for the resolution, you were gonna maybe check with James on if he had that original file.
It's actually much clearer than the first version. If I darken it, it may look a little better even, and then when Commissioner Lindstrom takes it, maybe improve it even more. So
Clean it up.
let us work on that a little bit.
Yep.
Yes, that was really the only one that I had.
These photos, do we have these original photos?
So.
Or at least some
here's the
decent
thing,
resolution.
and, Kathleen, I think I'd asked you, but, I am not taking any legal right that these photos, like, I think legal needs to bless this, right? So, I can't remember if I got the photos from you, Andrew, or not, but like, I think you need to take a look at this whole thing from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
All the way down to the copyright and bless it before we print them out.
And I think we're fine. And I did give a quick review of it. I unfortunately got interrupted. I do think I maybe had a comment or two, but I will also run this by legal. I do.
Now, the one on the, the one with the town green, of course, that came right off our site, so there's no issue with that, right? I don't recall the other two, but.
We're not telling me, so I don't think ultimately it's gonna be that big of an issue, but.
I tend to agree with you, but I'm not the lawyer.
Right, and let the lawyer, no, I'm with you, I'm just saying, right?
Unfortunately, we will have to put a time limit on Frank because, our outreach event at the hometown table, farmer's market on June 27th is a month away.
Yep.
And everything else is coming together except for, we don't have these printed yet.
And I'll need like a week to get these done. How many do we think we need? That's the next question. And we don't have to answer that today, but I will need to know at some point.
Yeah. For this particular event, I would say 100 would be more than sufficient. But we'd also like to put them in, on the counter in, at the wetland counter.
50 or
I think
500 or
probably
something.
a good guess.
Is there, if you're paying for 250 for like $10 more, you get 500.
Right, so.
My only comment was the term buffer. I thought they
I think
always
that was
said,
one comment. Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't use
they-
the word buffer. Buffer's
yeah,
not a.
shows up
buffer doesn't have
couple
a definition
times.
in this state.
Can you mark that up and then just pass it to me?
I don't know what we should use.
Put a question mark, circle, put a question.
Here, circle this copy.
Here's a couple places.
Yeah.
Now, it's in the same sentence where it says there's a 100-foot buffer around all designated wetlands, and this is called the upland review area.
Yeah, but it's not really you know what I mean? A buffer. I don't know. I just, from what I recall, it's
Not a great word.
it's not a good word.
Then call it a distance. There's a 100-foot
It's a
distance.
review area. It's a, I don't know. Don't have a
It's not a
better.
setback.
Well, I'm trying to describe,
Offset. It's a.
in that, I'm trying to describe what the upland review area is. So it's a set distance.
What would you say area?
There's a 100-foot area. There's a,
Fine.
I mean, if you say area, but then it's also
Areas,
area.
length and width, yeah, not distance.
Delineation?
Buffer's like a good word if you define buffer.
Well, I'm defining it in saying upland review area.
Right.
Or is it vice versa?
See, when I think.
Well, if you say an upland review area is a buffer between wetlands and something else.
See, when I hear.
What if you just switch it around and say the upland review area is a 100-foot distance off of?
That is very, that's much better because that's specific and everybody understands.
No, you write it down. You have a pen?
This is a borrowed pen. This is not- All right.
That's true, he didn't
I ran out of space here, so say that again.
The upland review area is a 100-foot distance around all designated wetlands.
Like that.
Except you need to add the word typically,
Around all,
typically 100 feet.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
5
Whatever
minutes.
it said in the deep thing.
Right, because it's not actually 100 foot every time. You're right.
I got it, yeah. But the upland review area is typically a 100-foot distance around all.
Designated wetlands. Was there anything else?
And
Other typos?
Just in like Word? Yeah, send it in Word. Because then we can, I will. I'll send you that and I'll send you a PDF. Be careful
fine.
with the Word because you touch one thing and the whole.
Oh, no, I know.
Format, auto.
But then we can,
Yeah.
yeah, send me both, because then we can make it look good.
And then, Mark, did you get my comment there with the, on the last page about us?
You sent that to me,
I
right?
sent that to you. Okay.
Okay.
We sent the QR code, right? We have a good QR code.
Now, I asked Mark about the QR code. I have no idea.
You know what, I think,
I can make a QR code too.
he's already made one for us.
You can make them on Google.
Yeah, it's nice. It's got the Monroe logo in the middle of it. And it goes directly to the main inland wetlands. I think maybe let's leave it there instead of the sub folder in there. I think that's good. You can always come back next year and make modifications, right?
Look at that.
Yeah.
You know.
Quarter 500, we want to talk about this for a couple of weeks.
Look at 1,000.
All right, so everybody else was good with all the content?
It's great.
A little higher resolution on the images?
We'll go with some, a little bit nice glossy paper.
Yeah, I was just say too, so you have that copy of the, LC one? Yeah, sure I do. Look, I'll show it to you. It doesn't need to be as thick as this, but.
It's gonna be thicker than that.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't need to be as thick as that, but that's.
All right, so with those changes and with the printing, we could get these done before the 27th?
This one.
I'm sorry, say
With
again.
the changes and the printing, we could get this done before the 27th?
Yes. So we gotta,
I could turn this around in a couple of days. I think it's just a legal approval that.
Yeah, Frank.
Okay, stop by and see it probably, maybe next week.
Do you have a digital copy?
With the updated version.
Yeah.
Yes.
Send me a digital copy of the updated, because he gets everything through email.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what I'll also do is I'll work with Teresa or somebody from IT. I'll also put a copy up on the site. So we have an electronic copy up there as well, once we have the final version.
Okay.
Great.
all right.
Mark.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.